We all know that Marvel Studios likes to keep us guessing until the last possible moment, and we respect that, but that doesn't mean we're not going crazy trying to figure out what we're going to see during the fourth phase of Marvel movies. We're going to share some of our favorite comic book storylines and characters that we'd love to see in the coming years with you, and you might be surprised how many hints Marvel has already dropped about what comes next. There are tons of interesting storylines and characters that we can't wait to see on the big screen, but we're going to start out by talking about one which may have recently been teased in a Marvel movie. In Avengers Endgame, various heroes were reporting into Natasha Romanoff, including Okoye, who was representing Wakanda. Although she didn't seem concerned by the underwater earthquake that occurred near Wakanda, it got us thinking. There's a certain aquatic character who has some notorious dealings with Wakanda in the comic books, Namor the Submariner. And it's about time, since many fans believe we also got an Atlantean teaser all the way back in Iron Man 2. During a meeting between Nick Fury and Tony Stark, one of the screens surrounding them showed an area highlighted off the coast of Brazil. It didn't match up with any known MCU area, but seemed like a plausible location for Atlantis, and it coincides with the location Okoye reported on. Namor is at times presented as a flat-out villain, and other times as a prickly anti-hero, and let's just say he's had some issues with Wakanda in the past. You know, like that time he flooded all of it. Could Namor make an appearance in Black Panther 2, posing a serious threat to T'Challa and the people of Wakanda? There were many reasons we were excited about the Captain Marvel movie, not the least of which was Carol Danvers herself, but we have to admit it was hard to contain our excitement about the Skrulls finally being introduced into the MCU. These shape-shifting aliens are notoriously evil in the comic books, and they're incredibly insidious. They're known for playing the long game, and we were immediately wondering which of our beloved Marvel characters weren't really who they appeared to be. Of course, the big twist in the movie was that the Skrulls aren't inherently evil, and the Kree aren't as virtuous as they like to think they are. But still, many fans haven't lost hope that we'll get to see a secret invasion storyline in the MCU. After all, not all of the Skrulls can be good guys. Secret Invasion was a storyline featuring tons of heroes, including Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Mr. Fantastic, and Namor. It told the story of a long-term, terrifying Skrull invasion that left our heroes wondering who they could really trust. Considering how everyone assumed Clint Barton was a Skrull the instant the first Avengers Endgame trailer dropped, we think this is a storyline plenty of fans want to see on the big screen. Doctor Strange was a hero many comic book fans had been looking forward to seeing on the big screen for quite some time. In his standalone movie, we saw him taking on the dreaded Dormammu, but it turns out he was supposed to fight another, more powerful villain. The original intention was to have Doctor Strange defend Earth from a villain known as Nightmare. But this idea didn't make it into the movie. Not because Nightmare wasn't good enough, but because he was really too good. The studio was worried they wouldn't be able to do the character justice while trying to establish Doctor Strange as a character. So they used the much less complex Dormammu instead. But now that a sequel to Doctor Strange has been announced, we can't help but hope we'll finally get to see Nightmare in the MCU. He rules the dream dimension, sort of like a more photogenic Freddy Krueger. He also appears in the Secret Invasion storyline to further thwart our heroes. In the Tempest Fugit storyline, he targets the Incredible Hulk specifically. Considering the more mild-mannered Hulk we now have in the MCU, this could definitely be an interesting addition to the MCU. We could be here all day with our wish list for the fourth phase Marvel movies, but we want to point out that we have been getting teased about the inclusion of Adam Warlock for quite some time. This powerful and popular character showed up at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but got barely more than a mention. With Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 being put on hold after the whole James Gunn situation, some of us began losing hope. Adam Warlock was heavily involved in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, upon which Infinity War and Endgame were very loosely based on, but since he didn't show up in those movies, does that mean he's never going to get more than a passing mention in the MCU? Well, let's not lose hope just yet. While much of Warlock's story does involve the Infinity Stones, and the Soul Stone in particular, we know things don't always directly translate from the comics to the big screen. Warlock has had some epic interstellar adventures, including the Magus Saga, where the harder Warlock tries to be a hero, the more everyone views him as a villain. Marvel Studios has been tight-lipped as usual about what we can look forward to in Phase 4. But there have been some rumors about a movie featuring the Eternals, to which we say, finally! Back in April 2018, Kevin Feige claimed a film based on the Eternals was one of many things that we are actively beginning to have creative discussions about. Chloe Zhao has been rumored to be directing the project, and actors like Angelina Jolie and Kumail Nanjiani are allegedly going to star in the movie. For the uninitiated, in Marvel comic history, there was a time when a certain celestial visited Earth and granted some essentially immortal humans with incredible cosmic powers. The movie is thought to focus on an Eternal named Cersei, who loves living among regular non-superpowered humans, and her relationship with fellow Eternal Icarus. Although we're far from a release date at this point, it does seem like the movie's going to happen at some point, and it isn't crazy to think it might be as soon as Phase 4. Going into Avengers Endgame, many fans wondered if they would be seeing a new villain even more powerful than Thanos. Apparently, traveling through time, collecting the Infinity Stones, and undoing the decimation just weren't a big enough challenge for some people. One of the names everyone wanted to see was Annihilus, who Marvel Studios had only recently acquired the rights to. He's a part of the Fantastic Four's Rogue Gallery, and until recently, they were owned by Fox. Although we didn't get to see Annihilus in Endgame, we haven't lost hope. In fact, we'd love to see the Annihilation storyline play out on the big screen. Not only would we get to see Annihilus, but it could also involve another popular character. When human teenager Richard Rider was gifted the powers of the last Nova Corps member, Roman Day, he became a hero known as Nova. This would be a great chance to introduce Nova and Annihilus, and would involve some of the literally out-of-this-world superheroes in the MCU. If you thought the quantum realm was wild, wait until you see the negative zone ruled by Annihilus. It's an antimatter universe surprisingly similar to our own universe, and we could see it having interesting implications in the MCU. Another prediction it seems like everybody made about Avengers Endgame was that Steve Rogers wouldn't make it to Phase 4. Well, that one was kind of right in that he's no longer Captain America. After going back in time to spend his life with Peggy Carter, Steve handed over the mantle of Captain America to Sam Wilson. This may have been a surprise to some, but it's actually something that happened in the comic books. Of course, we all want to see Sam taking on the role of Captain America, and we wouldn't be shocked to see Steve further act as a mentor. But it would be pretty great to see Sam Wilson get his very own sidekick. In the comic books, Sam acting as Captain America investigates the disappearance of a teenager named Joaquin Torres. This unfortunate fellow was turned into a human-bird hybrid, so really the moniker Falcon seemed more accurate when applied to him anyway. Sam ends up taking Joaquin under his metaphorical wing and teaches him how to become the new Falcon. Since Sam got promoted to Captain America, it makes sense that Marvel might want to make a new Falcon as well. We've been getting teased about a Black Widow movie for quite some time, and many fans were beginning to think it would never happen. According to actress Scarlett Johansson, both she and Marvel Studios had a lot going on and could never quite get the timing right. But considering what happened to Black Widow in Avengers Endgame, well, let's just say that ScarJo has some time on her hands now, and we think it's safe to say this movie is going to be a prequel at this point. Unless Marvel Studios goes full-on Marvel Zombies, which, to be clear, we'd absolutely support. But it seems more likely we'll be getting an origin story about Natasha Romanoff, and hopefully one that resembles the Deadly Origins storyline from the comic books. Allegedly, filming of the movie is already underway in Norway. Fans have spotted Scarlett Johansson sporting her long red Natasha Romanoff locks, and the rumor is that the movie is being produced under the name Blue Bayou. Now, many movies have working titles, so don't get too excited about seeing Black Widow Blue Bayou in theaters. But we're definitely ready for a Black Widow origin story, especially if we finally get to find out what happened to her and Clint Barton in Budapest. One movie we're tentatively excited about is the one involving ShangChi. Supposedly, it's on Marvel Studios' short list of projects, and we'd love to see it done well. But the only problem is that ShangChi, like so many Asian comic book characters from a certain era, can be kind of problematic. Even characters like Wong spent most of their time in the comic books being a one-dimensional Asian stereotype instead of a fully fleshed-out character. But Doctor Strange gave us a very different Wong, and one we enjoyed seeing on the big screen. So we have faith that they could put together a good ShangChi movie. ShangChi is a superhero without superpowers, but he's a master of martial arts. In the comic books, he's a member of the Secret Avengers team run by Steve Rogers. Since it seems like Steve is going to have some time on his hands, we could definitely see the Secret Avengers becoming a thing in the MCU in some way, shape, or form. The Secret Avengers are more low-key than the traditional ones, but that doesn't mean they're not out there saving the world. ShangChi is both capable of defending himself and helping out his fellow heroes as the case may be. Everyone knows who Jane Foster is, but hear us out. This character was introduced as Thor's love interest in the early days of the MCU. Like many female characters of that time period, she was pretty one-dimensional. When she didn't show up in Thor Ragnarok, most fans weren't too upset about it. To complicate matters, actress Natalie Portman reportedly had issues behind the scenes while filming Thor and Thor: The Dark World. Most of us assumed she was reluctant to reprise her role, which was why she didn't show up in Ragnarok, but as we all know, she did come back for Avengers Endgame, and things have changed in the MCU since she was originally involved. So, some of us think it's time for Jane to come back, not just as Thor's girlfriend, but as Thor. Now, if you're not a comic book fan, let us explain. In the comics, Jane takes on the mantle of Thor, wielding Mjolnir and protecting the world. She's so good at it that even Thor supports her, happily letting her use his name and calling himself Odin's son instead. In Endgame, we also saw Thor giving up control of New Asgard and setting off for parts unknown, so just maybe, he'll be willing to pass on the whole saving the world thing too at some point. No, we're not talking about the Dark Knight, that's DC's territory. We're talking about the Black Knight, also known as Dane Whitman. There have been rumors about him being introduced to the MCU for quite some time, and we may have already seen a hint about this in one of the movies. In a shot of Ant-Man and the Wasp, there's a hidden city revealed to exist in the quantum realm. While it was nothing more than an Easter egg in the movie, it could have far more serious implications in the future of the MCU. In the comic books, the Black Knight has adventures in a dimension known as the Weird World. It seems like exploring alternate universes and different dimensions is starting to be a thing in the MCU, and we are here for it. Dane Whitman is actually the third person to hold the title of the Black Knight, and he's been a member of the Avengers in the comic books. There's also one particularly interesting part of his past which ties into another character we'd like to see in Marvel's Phase 4. He once had a romance with the Eternal Cersei, so if the Eternal movie does move forward, it could mean a Black Knight movie isn't far behind. We've also been teased about the arrival of another Knight character, but this time it's the Moon Knight. In Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Agent Jasper Sitwell speaks of potential threats to Hydra, including Bruce Banner and Stephen Strange, but he also mentions a news anchor who lives in Cairo, Egypt. Then in Civil War, Secretary Ross shows the Avengers maps of global incidents, some of which we recognized, and one that appeared to be in Egypt. Coincidence? Egypt is where Mark Spector gains his powers and becomes the Moon Knight in the comic books. So this could have been some serious foreshadowing. In addition, Kevin Feige has stated that he's interested in incorporating the Moon Knight into the MCU, and James Gunn claims he'd love to work on such a project. Both of the Captain America films we mentioned were written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, who also wrote Infinity War and Endgame. Marcus claims he's been eager to write something involving the Moon Knight for quite some time, so it's possible he's been laying the groundwork for his eventual introduction. Now that Disney has James Gunn back on their payroll, it could only be a matter of time before they approve his Moon Knight pitch. After Avengers Infinity War, things looked pretty grim for our pal Loki, but in Endgame we saw him escape to who knows where thanks to some time travel and the Space Stone. We know there's going to be a show focused on Loki, and frankly, we couldn't be more excited about it. While he's one of the more diabolical members of the MCU, the movies have never even come close to touching on the true weirdness he's capable of in the comic books. This is why we'd love to see the Vote Loki storyline play out somewhere other than the comics. It's no secret Loki wanted to rule Asgard, but in this story, he runs for President of the United States of America. No, we're not joking, and it causes just as much chaos and confusion as you're probably imagining. We're used to seeing characters take on epic foes, and of course, that's one thing we love about Marvel movies. But we'd love to see some of the strange and convoluted storylines from the comics make their way into the MCU. Having Loki run for president seems like a really great way to do it. It's safe to say that Thanos raised the bar for villains in the MCU. The enemies have been getting more powerful, and that means the heroes are going to have to step up as well. We've already seen the ultra-powerful Captain Marvel join the rest of the cast, and we'd love to see the ultra-powerful Sentry become a part of the MCU as well. Robert Reynolds may seem like a hero from the golden age of comic books, but don't underestimate him. Power-wise, he's on par with characters like Galactus, and Galactus is known for devouring planets. But the Sentry is more than just an ultra-powerful dude. He has a distinctly flawed human side, which makes him incredibly compelling. He struggles to maintain his sanity at times, and when his Void persona comes out, well, let's just say it's a less than fun time for everybody involved. In fact, he's such a disaster that Doctor Strange ends up banishing all memory of him from human existence. Now that is how you defeat an enemy. It's possible the relationship between these two characters could be explored in the MCU. With Doctor Strange trying to keep the world safe and the Avengers roster at an all-time low, it could happen at some point during Phase 4. We've seen Shuri from the Black Panther franchise before, and she's one of the many characters fans want to see more of. She is a technical genius with access to tons of resources. And in the comics, she's way more than simply T'Challa's little sister. In fact, she had her eye on the throne of Wakanda for quite some time. When T'Challa is incapacitated due to Namor, Shuri takes over as his successor. However, this means facing the Panther God, who's less than impressed with Shuri. He claims she's too arrogant, and she kind of proves him right by taking on the throne and the mantle of the Black Panther anyway. Eventually, she's able to rescue T'Challa, which causes the Panther God to grant her powers. T'Challa becomes the Black Panther again, and we see Shuri take on a role similar to the one she has in the MCU. But we'd love to see Shuri acting as the Black Panther or the Queen of Wakanda on the big screen. After all, she's at least the smartest character on Earth, if not the universe. It seems like there's nothing the super smart Shuri can't accomplish. Now that we've shared some of our Phase 4 wish list, tell us what you want to see in the next phase of Marvel movies. Share your predictions with us in the comments section below, and then click on the subscribe button for more videos from us here at CBR. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.